So let's talk docs. Who here is really likes writing documentation? Okay, yeah. So I won't give too many. No, there's a couple of practical examples of how you can use AI and Drupal AI to do documentation, to publish documentation. I'll also take it a little bit meta and talk about why we as a company have decided to join the Drupal AI initiative and some of that. So, but first, can you tell me, I'm going to show you a couple of websites and guess what they have in common. So BNP, Mercedes-Benz, Data Portal, KBC is another bank, Vodafone, Ansys, ABN AMRO. So wait, oops. Now, these are not all our clients. This is from, it's a wider community, but all of these were developer portals. They're documentation sites that document how developers can use the APIs that an organization is exposing to create automated integrations. There's a really big overlap with AI. This is also how I schemed to with my co-schemers to get you all here to have a Drupal AI track because the API community is connected to a documentation community, and we've been doing a bunch of stuff in that, and this is how we ended up here. But all of these sites are built in Drupal, and like how come? Like, why would documentation sites be built in Drupal? Why would developer portal sites built in Drupal? Core reason probably is, or one of the main reasons is that these two companies, Google that bought Apigee and IBM, chose to use Drupal as their CMS developer portal solution many years ago. So in Gartner, they've been consistently leaders in the quadrant, and as a result, there's about 1,000 sites. It fluctuates a bit, but that are using the Apigee connector module, which is providing Apigee integration for Drupal. Also, IBM has a couple of hundred sites, as far as I've heard. And there's even a couple of SaaS solutions that are using Drupal under the hood. And with all of that taken together, Drupal is the market leader in CMS developer portals. I say it very specifically, CMS developer portals, because there's like static site generators and a bunch of other stuff like that. But in this specific segment, Drupal is a market leader. So with that quick introduction and kind of preamble, very short word about myself. Thank you, Laura, for already doing the honors. So I'm the CEO of Pronovix, one of the co-founders. I'm a bioengineer by education. That's why I like facilitating ecosystems, be those human ecosystems or technical or natural ecosystems. Love gardening. And our company, Pronovix, is specialized in building developer portals. I don't know, had you ever heard of developer portals before today? Like most? Okay, so maybe somebody not? No? Okay, well, it's like a pretty niche thing, but as I explained, Drupal has been pretty powerful in that specific application for a while. What we've been doing the last 10 years, so the first 10 years of Pronovix, we did a lot of stuff in the Drupal community. We were one of the organizers of DrupalCon SegEds. I'm kind of dating myself. Maybe some of you have been there. I did a lot of talks in the Drupal community, traveling a lot of different Drupal camps the first 10 years of our existence. The last 10 years we've been doing this in the API world, promoting the usage of Drupal as a documentation tool for building advanced documentation sites. Now, we decided to join the Drupal AI initiative. We were a bit withdrawn from the community, to be really honest, because most of our customers don't go to Drupal events. Actually, if you ask developers, if you start talking about Drupal, you often get answers that you won't necessarily like, or at least if you like Drupal. We had been focusing mostly on these external communities to promote the legitimacy of Drupal as like a really, really cool tool for doing this stuff. Then when the Drupal AI initiative came up, we were first a little bit like, no, this is really the moment to step in and to step up and become part of it because we wanted to help to make this a success, because I think it's kind of a do or die for a lot of web application frameworks. If this is a big wave, if you're not going to catch this wave, you're going to be in trouble. And I think Drupal has really stepped up to the challenge. Drupal AI initiative, there's a bunch of other stuff happening with Drupal CMS and so on. But we felt that we needed to be part of this, and that's why we joined the initiative, to help to strengthen the usage of Drupal and to grow the markets for Drupal in our specific niche and somewhat around that. Now, I'm going to, as Laura already alluded to, I like making things a little bit abstract. I like thinking about things, try to make you think a little bit different, because that's also what I enjoy, like talks that, give me a new perspective. And I really sincerely hope that's what I'll be able to do for you today. Because I'm going to be talking about 4 core concepts that I believe Drupal and Drupal AI and AI together can do really interesting and meaningful things where we're kind of unique. 4 concepts where I believe that Drupal should participate and where Drupal has a chance to win. The first concept is context. And now, when I say context, I don't just mean context what you give to a large language model, the prompt stuff. I'm talking about context as a little bit more abstract. Actually, in specific, I'm talking about the third context. What do I mean with that? It's a neologism. I invented this, I think, I haven't seen anybody talk about this before. But through the years, these 10 years that we've been building developer portals in Drupal, we've realized that we've been up against site generators and all of that other stuff that if you're building websites in Drupal, you've probably also had to deal with, like figuring out, like people saying like, why don't you just, generate a website? It's so much easier. You could just make content in Markdown and just push it through your pipeline and boom, you've got a site. And it's going to be more performant because you can just cache it and, it's cheaper to run and so on and so on and so on. But problem with this is that those tools all are built for like a public context. They're really great if all your content is going to be public. And I would call that the second context. The first context is things that are happening inside of your organization, like all your tools, like your work, like your productivity suite, like Microsoft or Google Suite, whichever or whatever else you're using, maybe using open source. All of these tools, it's fairly easy to create a private context where you can chunk off certain areas that are for different groups, but where generally you think that everybody is going to be part of your organization. And it's fairly easy to create content or a system or a space where everything is public. But what do you do with the stuff in between? This is the stuff that we've been doing for the last 10 years for most of our customers, is creating publishing systems where some content, like partner APIs, is not publicly accessible, where only partners are able to access that information. Or where you can set up like time to release of certain information, where some people can see it early and other people can see it later, where you can collaborate with people on your content. That kind of stuff is what I call the third context. And this is an area where Drupal is really, really powerful and actually quite unique in its capabilities, I would say. What I imagine that Drupal can do in this space is to create a tool that helps you to create, I call it context management system. It's like, CMS, but not your old CMS, not a content management system, but a context management system, where you can define a very specific context and how it should behave, and help and use that to define a really valuable space that helps you to differentiate as organizations. I personally think that building these kind of systems is the future of Drupal. Not the general purpose publishing, not the everything private kind of stuff, but that space in between I actually even believe that we have a chance there to compete with the wider SaaS application, business application suite, like all of that stuff, all of those applications that are currently one size fits all. I think Drupal could provide a really interesting alternative there that can help to capture a lot more value than those standard out-of-the-box systems ever can do. I'll show a demo in a moment of how we've used AI to push content from a private Google context into one of these Drupal contexts. I'll show that in a moment. But like you could think about like CRMs, for example, where you're collaborating with your customers. Like instead of having a CRM that's only for your employees, having a website that is a CRM where you're collaborating on business cases with your customers. And from the first moment they visit your site, you start building up that business case. So that kind of stuff, I think we can build with Drupal. Second area is structure. Structured text or structured documentation has been something that Drupal has always been very good at. 15 years ago, I had like long talks with Jeff Eaton about DITA, which is a documentation standard, and structured documentation and that kind of stuff. For a moment there, it really looked like structured documentation was the way to go for or at least to me, for how we should be documenting stuff. But then in the community, we started seeing this push towards Markdown, which was like everything that was not really structured documentation. Like, yes, you can build some structure into Markdown, you can have front matter and stuff like that, but it's a lot of effort to keep remembering to do that. You could set up linters to check, but it's just not that good for it. But the way that people started building content and doing this kind of stuff with code repositories and so on and what that afforded, this is now the thing that has become like pretty much the mainstream for doing documentation. Insofar that when you go to documentation conferences, there's a lot of talk about Markdown and what to do and how to build with that. Or MDX is like the latest thing, but it's also non-structured. Now, the interesting thing that we can do with this is in Drupal, and this is something that I have a live demo of, is that you can have unstructured text in Markdown, push it into Drupal, and then use automators to extract structure from that unstructured text. Right? Yes, makes sense? Still following? The brain hasn't melted yet. Okay. So because you can build up a custom content model with your metadata, like your keywords for your organization, the types of products you have, whatever metadata you need, and extract the structure from your content, from your unstructured text, and populate that metadata so that then you have the controls and the systems that Drupal provides you using that metadata to do more interesting things. And then also there's access, the access control system that allows you to set different flows and stuff like that. But let me make it more visual. Oh, it works. So let me speed this up. This is a demo that we're showing at our booth, because we're it's also a 10-year partnership with Google, and anyway. But this is Agent Development Kit, which is a Google tool for building agents. And one of our colleagues built, David, who's here, he built an agent to go fetch information from Jira or from Confluence, bring it into the Google Agents Development Kit, then use it to structure, to build a blog post, and then to push that into Drupal. He's using JSON API, as far as I know. So far, okay, just an agent story. Now, the interesting thing is what's coming next. So we went from a private context to a semi-public context. What you see here is fields that were automatically populated using Drupal AI. So that the tags, entity references, and so on, they were all generated using AI, but in a way that you're using a structured model to make sure that that keyword exists and that you're picking keywords that are already existing and that you're following the content model that Drupal has. And then you need to do a verification step to make sure that it's actually factually correct, because you could have hallucinations in there. Okay. So that was structure. Next one is affordances. Who knows the word affordances? Have you heard of this? Okay, so affordances is this really interesting thing because affordances is, or at least this is how I understand it, is a word from the world of complexity where affordances exist between a user and an object. Let me make it clear. So if you have a rock, big rock, heavy rock, you can discover an affordance in that rock to use it as a hammer, to hammer in a nail. Or you can discover that it can be used as a paperweight or as a bookend. All of these things are not features of a rock. Like a rock does not have features. Well, maybe some rocks have, but normally rocks don't have features. But you can discover these affordances in a rock. I believe that because of AI, we are like product documentation. And this was there was that question about what else can you do to improve answer engine optimization or generative engine optimization. I think this is one of those. Discovering what are the affordances that your organization has. What does it mean for people? Not just what do you think it should mean for people. What are the features of your organization? But what are the affordances? What are the things that people do with your organization? And then clearly documenting those so that people that are saying like, hey, I'm looking for something to help me solve this problem, can find your organization as one of those organizations that solves that problem. I think is going to be incredibly important going forward because marketing is reshuffling. The way marketing happens, where you used to have market categories, people used to learn jobs, and then things did not change for a very, very long time. I think for big parts, the timelines there are shorter now. And to be able to address that, we need to become much more agile in discovering what are the affordances that people have found in the things that we produce, in the products that we produce, and the organizations we have. That's why I have AEO and GEO. And AEO is answer engine optimization. And answer engine optimization was like the previous generation of the thing that was going to replace SEO. And because remember, not too long ago, we had Alexa and all of these voice agents and stuff. So, and the goal was to be able to have an agent, or the goal was to make sure that when you asked an agent a question, that your brand would come out of there because there was only one shot. And to some extent, that's kind of what's happening right now. It's not exactly. That's why these are two different distinct things. So you have now answer zero, which is like making sure that it's you that comes out. But there's also generative engine optimization because there you have a little bit of leeway because maybe people ask for like 5 examples or 5 products that can solve a certain question. Both Geo and AEO are built on top of SEO, and Kristof did a really great talk about explaining the nitty-gritty of all the things you should be thinking about. One of the things that I think you could still add to that is this thinking about what are the derivatives of your content that you can create without hitting SEO problems, which is the big problem, and because there's been some backlash against like generated pages that were just blatantly doing this way too obviously. But how can you like create derivatives of your content that are addressing these different affordances that people are looking for? Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the tooling here. I also have an LLM. I got one of these. So we have on our booth, you can see this website. This is our solution hub that we've built, which is a hub of capabilities and solutions for building developer portals that we're teasing right now at our booth. We'll publish it later. If you're building a developer portal, could be interesting to come and have a chat. But at the bottom here, we've got lm.txt. And that's the file that you see. And then if you go into detail about individual content, there's some work here because those white spaces, those line returns shouldn't be there. But this is the markdown version of our content to like make it easier for a large language model with a lower token count to consume our content and to do interesting things with it. Okay. Okay, so that was a demo. Then a fourth, intent. This last one. This is where large language models are really good. This is where the juice is. This is where a lot of value lies. Intent, because large language models were actually kind of originally perceived as translation engines, or that's where a lot of the history for large language model comes from. And they're really good in translating your way of understanding how the world works to how your organization or how an organization thinks the world works and what their products should be able to do and so on and so on. So that translation from what people think they're looking for and what you have, that is what large language models are really strong in. So we've already had a talk about search and how you can do that practically. I have some meta ideas about different ways that you can augment search and by adding an intent layer on top of it. So I believe that using Drupal AI and the toolkits that the community is building, that it's possible to create a contextual intent layer that is aware of your metadata model, that is aware of the kind of problems customers are trying to solve with your products, to help to translate the questions that your customers or users have into like actionable advice. And there's 4 ways that I think we can do this, or 4 that I've identified so far. So first one is a simple one, is just search as a prompt. Like take whatever the customer is inputting in the search field and use it as a prompt and do some magic with that. That could be an assistant, or it could be like just replacing the assistant with the infinite context, scrolling context with a single context window that is just giving one answer. Because there's research that people still don't really like assistants all that much because they've been burned too much by really bad assistants in the past. Also, like, is this thing hallucinating? By doing this, you can remove a little bit of the yuck factor. Actually, really interesting thing I learned at a meetup was that if you are adding AI features to your system, it's often better not to use the AI word. You're inoculating against potential backlash when the bubble will burst. And also people anyway have to make sure that it's giving real answers and that there's no, or at least as little hallucinations as possible. But you can inoculate a little bit against that. Second, agentic search. This was something that I learned from Jamie. He had this really amazing case study or story he told me about a company, or I think it was a government website, where they were translating a search field into configuration for faceted search. So that instead of just searching for the keywords, they were using the keywords to set up the faceted search so that the results would come out, which is leveraging the metadata, maybe that you built using AI with the structured concept from earlier, but to use the metadata to help people to navigate into your content more effectively and efficiently. Another potential agentic scenario would be where you recognize certain keywords that mean that customer is looking for something that a lot of people are looking for, and that you then maybe create an agent specifically to answer that specific type of question, so that you're reacting to the intent that people have, and maybe some intent that you've seen coming back to better address it. Third is a generated query. Hypothetically, because this doesn't exist yet, but I've been talking about creating a user context extension for the context module for Drupal. If you know that this user, this person that's visiting your site, that they're a member of a company that has bought a very specific product and a very specific version of your product, then it would be so nice if you could just give them only the information that's relevant to their company's context, or to highlight that, based on who you are, probably in your company, you're using this product. So probably you want to look at this article instead of all the other stuff that we have. that kind of stuff could really improve the effectiveness of search and help to use the context that you have about your customers to improve the search activities that they have on your site. And the last one is a combinatorial search, where, and this is something that we've been doing, and I'll show you an example in a moment, is where we are using automators to basically create a report that's doing a bunch of different searches using different prompts and different pieces of content to generate basically a contextualized report based on a user query. I'll show you in a moment. So I told you about this site. Now I can actually show you live. This is our solution generator, and like here you have some popular use cases, like if somebody's just kicking the tires, then they can take one of those. If I can say, I hope this works, developer portal with GraphQL and REST APIs and access control. It's a bad example because it's not normally you would dictate this. Like you would be able to just say like, yeah, our company is building a developer portal. It needs to do this and this and this. And then you can generate a solution. And, oh, yes. I've got an example. Might be, we might have hit our token, well, whatever. But, here you can see the initial field is a title that was generated based on the query, like shortening it. There's a short description that was generated based on that. You could use RAG for that. There's capabilities, because we have a capability content type with capabilities for developer portals that we bring out. We've got a maturity model where we have practices that we've extracted that are relevant to this case. Some marketing solutions that were relevant that we've brought in, and then some resources from our main website, blog posts that are related to what people were looking for. And this kind of report, this could be like first contact with your customer. Hopefully the model doesn't have a token count problem. But that they can generate the first contact instead of having to like read through your website. They can say like, this is what I'm trying to do with you, and I think you can help me. And the system comes back with like, yeah, sure. Here's all the things we could do for you. And then that entity, that node that you've generated, they can claim it by logging in, and then they can share it with their boss. An account manager gets triggered and says like, oh, there's a lead. I can react back. You can like do iterations on that piece of content, and that becomes like a piece of content that you're co-creating with your customers to like figure out what relationship you might have with that organization. So that's the last one, and then slideshow. Yeah, there was a demo. So I hope I was able to inspire you and to refresh you a little bit just before the break. This is the things that we're looking to do with Drupal AI. I'll have another session tomorrow about solution portals. This is the why should you do answer engine optimization, a little bit more in depth of what I hinted at with affordances and so on. And then I'll have another session on Thursday, which is going to be about rethinking developer portals. This one is about tools, spaces, and their affordances, which is, again, more deeper philosophical, but it's about, is there still a future for websites or for applications? Because at some point, Satya Nadella was saying, like, SaaS is going to disappear. It's all going to be agents. We don't need these, like, stinky old web. Well, he didn't say it like that, but I'm paraphrasing. But he was kind of like saying, like, you guys, you're all going to die because AI is going to take over everything. And I have some opinions on that. But I also I explain in what places that it will be replaced and in what places it won't be replaced. And there's social. There's some philosophical basis for those opinions. So if you're interested, I hope, and you're still around, come and check those out. And with that, I'll finish. If you want, connect me on LinkedIn, and thank you for your attention. Are there any questions? I don't know how I'm doing on time because I wasn't. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
This is the busiest room you can find.
Awesome.
Kind of the general dev portal and documentation.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
I hear a lot of people saying if you're a SaaS or a service provider, you need to build your documentation or your marketing site or any of these things in the newest, hottest stack that you think your users might want to be using. You've got to build it in Node.js, you've got to build it in Rust, you got to, what, as an agency that specializes in doing these sorts of things in Drupal, have you found any evidence to support that or negate it?
So teams that are building their own developer portal in-house often will end up doing some React something, and but this is often just a developer's choice because so this is why us all being here at a developer conference is so important, because if developers think that Drupal is old crap, then they're not going to use it. We need to make Drupal really, really sexy. It's really important that developers want to engage with us and try it out, because they're often making the choice like, well, I feel like learning this new thing that I've heard about and it looks kind of cool and I don't need to deal with all this complexity. But then, 1 or 2 years later, they've built this really complex monolith that's implementing all of this stuff that Drupal already had. And now nobody understands anymore how it works. And so there are some reasons for like new generations of tooling. Like if you're building a static site, if you're purely building a public site and you don't need any kind of access control or some of these workflows and stuff like that, you might as well have a site that's just an HTML page that does not have an attack vector and all of that stuff. So it depends a bit. Yeah, like for documentation sites, I think some of these things, like the stirred context, I think that can really provide a lot of value that those tools really simply don't have. Because they're not built for it. They're just built for a public thing. And then if you want to, what typically often happens is that they'll start with the public stuff, and there's like, we need to add like some special space, and we need to figure out how we're going to do access control and like how people are going to log in and do stuff. Let's make some special backend server, and then and you see, or let's make microservices. It's going to be awesome. So there's a lot of that. That's kind of like the thing I see. Thank you for the question. Yeah. Yeah. And
thanks very much for the presentation. Another question, obviously you're getting companies to build their developer portals in Drupal. Have any companies then transitioned their websites across Drupal, or went off the back of it, acting as a funnel of sorts?
Right now, not much, not really, not yet. But my hope is that we're doing really, really awesome stuff, like with some of this affordance things. Like if we can be at the forefront of truly understanding how AI is changing the web, like even if AI is not truly intelligent, even if it's really just a really good stochastic parrot, it is changing the web fundamentally. Like some really big things are changing. If we understand how those changes are affecting the web and how web publishing needs to change as a result, and we can build the tools for that, then what I'm sneakily trying to do is bring Drupal through the back door back in.
Trojan horse.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So the example that you showed earlier of the pages getting generated,
Yes,
in a way, like it's like chat-based personalization, right?
it is. But it's not chat. It's like
Well, prompt-based chat.
it is because you're so there's some content is generated, but there's a lot of content that is basically like a really fancy semantic search. And you're linking to other content in your site, but you're basically making a personalized version of your site for that specific problem that your customer has.
So then once you have that, how does that exist? Did you create a new piece of content
Yes.
stored in the database with a unique like string token
Yes.
and sent it to them?
Yes.
So then like hypothetically, well, you're protecting its bots making 1 million pages on your
Yeah.
website, things like that. But yeah, so it exists forever basically.
Yeah. So it exists. It's now something that the person who asked it can claim. Otherwise, well, we need to still figure out like how do we get rid of them after some time or something like that. And but that is the idea. Yeah.
But so my question / comment there is like there's we talk sometimes about there's like different we're down this track, but
Yeah.
that like personalization conversation still sort of exists. It's a different place to like sort of approach this question, and it's an interesting place to start from too. That's a great fascinating.
Personally, I like this personalization much more than this personalization that you don't have control over, and that's based on like some random cookie you have in some other place. This is like the less sneaky personalization because it's on demand. It's like you who's asking for that personalization, and you understand why you got to that personalized content. Yeah, thank you. I think we probably need to let you go and have coffee. Thank you very much.